Hineni. Here I am. I am here, standing before you, God, and my community on Rosh Hashanah, poised for the new year to begin. It has been 17 months since COVID-19 disrupted our entire world, changed our lives forever. And I feel the primal call of Hineni welling up again, as many of our ancestors have before us, as Abraham experienced today in our Torah portion. The need to scream it at the top of my lungs, like the roar of a lion, a roar of frustration, exhaustion, mixed in with a little bit of might. You may remember, it's okay if you don't, a lot has happened in a year, that I focused on the word Hineni last year with the intention of inspiring us to show up and be present in the face of adversity, to accomplish great things even during very difficult times. Now, I stand before you with the desperate need to say it again, in a different way, because just a few short months ago, we started to feel like we could breathe a little easier again. And then came the Delta variant. We still stand at a crossroad, a time of transformation and change. Time may have passed, yet it seems we still may have a long road ahead. It's been 17 months, and I'm tired. Who else is tired? I am tired of constantly feeling anxious, fearful, frustrated, and grief-stricken, with uncertainty all around, everywhere I turn, calculating, assessing risks every day, multiple times a day, constantly questioning what is right and wrong, answers or decisions that were once easy to make are now much more complicated, like whether to eat at a restaurant, eat inside or outside, wear a mask or not, go to a gathering or not, come in person to high holy day services or not. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of stamina to do all of this while trying to live life as normally as possible, while still dealing with the everyday stressors that we dealt with before the pandemic. Guess what? Feeling all these complex emotions are normal. Feeling run down is normal because it has been 17 months. And it's okay to voice it, to name it, acknowledge it. It doesn't make us weaker. It makes us stronger to better understand ourselves and what others are going through, to see others who feel the same as you, and also provide support and understanding to those who may need it. Because if you are feeling this way, you are not alone. I would bet most of us are feeling some semblance of what I'm talking about, although it may not be exactly the same for each individual or family. I bring us here today because it is Rosh Hashanah, a time of new beginnings. I think to start the new year off on the right foot, we need a little more hope sprinkled into our lives. More hope to strengthen our steps, boost our energy, maybe with some extra comfort to raise us up and keep us moving into the unknown of the seemingly never-ending pandemic. So, what is this sprinkle of hope I am talking about? I am going to share with you the magic, the power of the in-between, of being in transition, the place, the state we all happen to currently be living in. Whether we want to be there or not, COVID-19 is keeping us in a state of flux, and it is far from over. I repeat, we currently are living in transition. We may never fully return to the way life was like prior to the pandemic. We also don't know yet what the future holds. Instead of letting the feeling of not knowing drag us down as the days, months, maybe years pass by, let's turn things around. Change our perspective. Use the journey ahead to empower us and take charge. You may be asking yourself, what is so magical about the in-between? Being in transition, it doesn't feel magical at all. It really feels strange, hard, and very weird at times. Well, for one, magic always takes place in the in-between. According to many myths, legends, and fairy tales throughout multiple cultures. But that's a class for another time. However, before diving into that, we need to first ask ourselves, what is transition? One of the leading experts on change and transitions, William Bridges, paints the concept of transition in a wonderfully complex and helpful way. He defines transition as a three-phase psychological reorientation process that people go through when they are coming to terms with change. Transition is a process. The first phase begins with an ending, with people letting go of their old reality and their old identity. The second phase is called the neutral zone. Bridges describes the neutral zone as a time and state of being in which old behaviors and attitudes die out and people go dormant for a while as they prepare to move out in a new direction. He also emphasizes it is a dangerous time for organizations, but it is also a time when innovations and experiments have an especially good chance of succeeding. It is the longest and most challenging phase. The third phase of transition is the new beginning, which equals a new sense of purpose and a new energy comes to life. This final phase can't happen without completing the first two. What phase do you think we're in right now? Raise your hand if you think we are in the first phase. The second phase, or the third. The phase we are all experiencing now is the second phase, the neutral zone. Here is where I believe the magic begins. All the possibilities. The neutral zone is where our magic, our power, hope comes from, because it is the time, the state when innovation happens. Innovation is magic. Bridges says it is during these in-between times, the states of wilderness that open between the demise of an old order and the birth of a new one, that innovation is most likely to occur in any organization. Why is that? Think about it for a moment. Innovation is most often born from the combination of need and possibility that occurs when something comes to an end and a new beginning is on the horizon. This is the place where questioning happens the most, trying to find answers for things we don't understand. The place where imagination and creativity come to life. That is our present and our future. That is the hope we can count on. Think about the innovation that has already taken place since the pandemic began. The world created a vaccine in the quickest time in history. Work and synagogue have been adapted to be fully or partially remote in order to help us remain connected to one another, even in the darkest of times. Innovation is not just technology-driven. What about a pod, the school experience? What about a literal walk in the park? Meditation mixed into daily life. During this state of transition, we actively seek out better ways of doing things, sometimes out of necessity, like the vaccine, and others as a means to find a more meaningful life. Innovation is happening every day. Often the thought of innovation is to create something new. Let's start at the very beginning of time, all the way back to creation, which is very fitting because today, Rosh Hashanah, is the birthday of the world. The second verse of Genesis tells us, now the earth was tohu vavohu, was empty and without form. The earth was empty and without form. In a certain light, that could sound really depressing, especially if you focus on the words empty and without form. However, if something is empty and without form, that means it is open to possibility. It is open to growth. Creation is innovation at its finest. God took nothing and turned it into the world. Think about that. That's huge. Harnessing God in all of us, if we, the Jewish people, had a superpower, it would be the ability to innovate. Throughout our history, we have been innovators, not only for ourselves, but also the world. Our ancestors learned this the hard way, having once lived through a 40-year, and I repeat, 40-year transition wandering in the wilderness. After Moses freed us, we didn't just arrive in the promised land. It took 40 years in the neutral zone to get there. Their journey was long, but essential. Why? Why was that so important? Because they needed the time to leave their old identities behind and form a new one. That is when we became a nation. A lot of beautiful innovations were born during that time. For example, our commandments, a new way for us to live and govern ourselves. The building of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, a new way for us to worship. Another example from our vast history is the destruction of the temples, an expulsion from the land that ultimately led to the birth of Rabbinic Judaism. Prayer was a significant innovation. Priests and sacrifices were then a thing of the past, while rabbis and communal prayer came to the forefront. Synagogues were built. This is the Judaism we still live today. A more modern example is the State of Israel. When the State of Israel was founded, they faced a lot of obstacles, such as hostile neighbors, both safety issues and trade resource issues. The country is 60% desert. There's harsh climates, limited water sources, few natural resources. It's a small country. There are so many challenges they faced. But when Israel was faced with these obstacles as a brand new country, they had no choice but to find ways to innovate around them, or they simply wouldn't have survived. They needed to become self-sufficient and independent and do it under immense pressure. It was their perseverance mixed with necessity that they came up with incredible, innovative solutions in terms of water purification, health, and technology that have helped them not just survive, but thrive on a global scale. Big transitions lead to bigger innovations. There are so many possibilities ahead of us. We, like our ancestors, can persevere. Start looking for answers to the questions we still have, and I know there are many. However, in order to be innovative, in order to use the magic of the in-between, of transitions in the best way, to ensure better chances of our success, it is also essential to ensure that our inner well, our confidence and spirit stays full, and we don't start living on empty. There is only so long that we can remain in that state without falling apart. To put things into perspective, I recently read an interview from NPR's podcast, All Things Considered, with Ari Shapiro, titled How to Deal with Renewed COVID Anxiety. He interviewed DC doctor Lucy McBride, and no surprise, after I finished the interview, I felt my anxiety soften. Dr. McBride voiced, "We also need to realize that COVID is here for the duration. It's not about eliminating risk. That's just not on the menu. But what we need to do is, just as we have to modulate our fears so that we protect ourselves without driving ourselves crazy, we need to manage expectations for what life is going to look like once we have the virus under control. Accepting that, and accepting that we may be in the neutral zone for a while, can really open us up to the possibilities, the magic of innovation and the future, instead of freezing us in place. Our questioning can become more productive. This also means taking care of not just our physical, but our mental and spiritual well-being. As Dr. McBride said, it is not the same prescription for everyone. We all have different perspectives, but think about all the good we can do. If you can't remember anything I've said today, remember this. After spending considerable time in thought and research and in practice, here is what I can offer you today to help fill your well, build your confidence and spirit. 1, when you are feeling low, do something good for someone else. 2, make small goals. Give yourself small successes. This will help lead you to your purpose. Regain a sense of control. 3, create your team. Know who is there to support you. 4, celebrate the small things. Find ways to be present and joyful. Try not to take things for granted. 5, as my iWatch tells me more often than I would like, breathe. 6, keep yourself informed. Look for the facts from the experts. Don't get swallowed up by social media. Reading too much can lead to overload and drive you crazy. 7, this is the last and maybe most important piece. Be kind to yourself. Forgive yourself. This isn't easy. Check in. This journey is not a straight one. It is clearly filled with bumps, twists, and turns along the way. Thanks to the Hofberger Endowment Fund for Torah Education, Beth Israel is presenting a 2-part speaker series titled A New Year, Regaining a Sense of Control, to both Beth Israel members and to the wider Jewish community in Baltimore. The purpose behind this speaker series is to help reinvigorate ourselves as we manage living in transition, with the support of strong motivational speakers, Caroline Adams Miller and Erica Brown, as well as Torah to guide the way. There will be many more details to come, so keep an eye out for them. The truth is, we didn't want to leave our old lives, our pre-COVID lives. It was forced on us. So it makes sense that we were having trouble letting go. But we can't go back. We can only move forward. So let's do what we can to make the new world we live in magical. As some of you may know, I am a collector of inspirational quotes, one of which I believe holds a special poignancy today. Albert Camus wrote, "My dear, in the midst of hate, I found there was within me an invincible love. In the midst of tears, I found there was within me an invincible smile. In the midst of chaos, I found there was within me an invincible calm. In the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer. And that makes me happy. For it says that no matter how hard the world pushes against me, within me there's something stronger, something better, pushing right back. There is no doubt that each and every one of us will do everything in our power to protect ourselves and the ones we love the best way we know how. As one of my favorite modern-day artists, Katy Perry, sings in her song, Roar, I got the eye of the tiger, a fighter, dancing through the fire, 'cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar, louder, louder than a lion, 'cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar. So as we embrace the magic of the in-between and possibilities that 5782 can bring, roar with me, and let's change our lives for the better. Shana Tova.
Shalom.